First up, the topic is OpenAI. They have completed a significant $6.6 billion funding round that values the company at $157 billion, which basically doubles the company's valuation from just 9 months ago when it was valued around $80 billion. This funding round was led by Thrive Capital. There was participation from Microsoft and Nvidia, as well as SoftBank and the United Arab Emirates investment firm, MGX. Thrive Capital alone invested about $1.3 billion. They have an option to invest up to $1 billion more at the same valuation through 2025. This, of course, as we've talked about on past episodes, comes despite OpenAI's current financial losses. I mean, the company expects about $3.7 billion in sales this year, but is projecting losses of roughly $5 billion due to the costs associated with developing and running AI technology like ChatGPT. Interestingly, this funding comes with certain conditions. OpenAI has 2 years to transform into a for-profit business, or the funding will convert into debt. So, Paul, we have been talking about this news for a while. It's been very well rumored. We've covered many of the salient details here. Now it's official. So can you kind of walk through what matters most to pay attention to here now that we know exactly what the details are of the fundraise?
Yeah, anyone who listened to episode 117, this was the number that was being rumored. We talked about that, and we touched on the valuation, like how do you get it 150 pre-money, 157 roughly post-money. It's because they're projecting 11.6 billion in future revenue the next 12 months, basically. And then you apply a multiple to that is roughly how it's done. That there may be some nuances this time around, but it gives you a ballpark of that number. So it's actually a reasonable number given that approach. A couple of other elements to this. One, in addition to the 6.6, was it 6.6 billion? 6.6.
Yep.
They also secured a $4 billion line of credit and or revolving line of credit. So they, in their own post where they announced the $4 billion credit facility, they said they have $10 billion in liquidity, which gives them flexibility to invest in new initiatives. And then in their other posts, so they had a post announcing the credit line and a post announcing the equity. So we're making progress on our mission to ensure that AGI benefits all of humanity. That was the lead to the blog post. So again, bringing it back to their overall mission, and said that the new funding is going to go toward leadership. So invest in talent, basically increasing compute capacity, i.e. buying more NVIDIA chips, and continue building tools that help people solve hard problems. They're going to need the money. They continue to lose people. So just, last week we talked about all the people who have left this year. They just lost the co-lead for Sora. So the guy who was building Sora, which we talked about last week, had its delays. He is leaving to go to DeepMind, and he tweeted, "I will be joining Google DeepMind to work on video generation and world simulators." And then they also had another, let's see, what was this guy's name? He was one of the co-founding members, Dirk Kingma. And Dirk said, "I'm joining Anthropic. Anthropic's approach to AI development resonates significantly with my own beliefs. Looking forward to contributing to Anthropic's mission of developing responsible AI." So, things kind of keep evolving. The other thing that's sort of a nuance to this is apparently the word is that they wanted exclusives with their investors. So they apparently, and I think OpenAI has come out and said this is not true, but there's lots of sources saying it is in fact true. They asked for exclusives from their investors, meaning they were not allowed to invest in 5 companies that OpenAI identified as key competitors. One was Elon Musk's xAI, another is Anthropic, another is Safe Superintelligence, which is Ilya Sutskever, one of the co-founders of OpenAI. That's his company. Perplexity is another one. And then Glean, I thought was interesting, that made this list. And anybody who listens, weekly to the show might recognize Glean. On episode 115, Mike and I talked about Glean. They had just raised a $260 million Series E funding at a $4.6 billion valuation to build what they called the Google for Work using generative AI. It is co-founded by 4 guys. 3 of them are former Googlers and one is formerly from Facebook. So On the surface, it's a ton of money, one of the biggest, if not the biggest raise in history, a massive valuation. But as we have talked about many times on this show, it is a bridge to the next round. This is not enough money to go where OpenAI and Sam Altman intend to go. They are going to need at least another 50 to 100 billion in the next 12 months, is my guess. I'm guessing it's going to probably be north of 100 billion. So sometime in the next 12 to 18 months, they're going to do another massive round and or they're going to go public. My guess is it's going to be really complex to switch to the for-profit that they're going to need to do before they can go public. So chances are they raise another 50 to 100 billion in the next 12 months as the final bridge to the IPO. And at that point, they're probably valued at $500 billion or more. Like it's just, and I know the numbers are nuts, but that's the thing is keep in context. While this sounds like a whole bunch of money, this is not enough money to do what they're intending to do.
So I wanted to talk just a little bit about that funding condition, about becoming a for-profit business in the next couple of years. Like, is that the biggest hurdle they have to figure out right now?
It does seem to be a massive hurdle. I'm sure that there's other complexities, such as Microsoft's deal with them. So Microsoft is rumored to have put in about 13 billion, and I think that gives them, from this going back a year or so, but if I remember correctly, it's like 49% ownership of the current for-profit arm that's underneath the nonprofit right now. And I think Microsoft has access to, like, I want to say it was like the first 100 billion in profits or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
Like it was some sort of condition. So Microsoft's not going to just give away this position they had. So I'm sure there's all kinds of complexities. And the other thing that caught my attention in the OpenAI's blog post announcing the 6.6 billion, they said, we aim to make advanced intelligence a widely accessible resource. And then it went on a little bit and then said, by collaborating with key partners, including the US and allied governments. That's really interesting. That is a very intentional phrase, I would say. So my expectation is the next round, I don't know that we'll ever hear about the US government money going into this, but I wouldn't be shocked if there's something there. It's the allied governments. That's setting the stage for other governments, which we've previously talked about on the show, possibly getting involved heavily in the funding of the future build out. Because what that means is you look at allied countries where data centers can be built. And so this, country A may put in, I don't know, like 50 billion. And in exchange, we're going to build 50 data centers in there. Like that kind of, that's the sort of stuff you're going to hear about over the next 3 to 5 years is these really complicated partnerships that are money plus, basically.
Yeah, we are starting to see some of that from Aschenbrenner's situational awareness, his kind of contours that he painted of like great power competition, essentially, or geopolitical wrangling around funding of these companies.
It's going to be complicated, for sure.